Force Headquarters in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. Thank you.
First question, Stair from Stars and Stripes. Please direct who you would like to answer the question.
Okay. Hi, as you said, I'm Rose with Stars and Stripes. Thank you for hosting some questions from us today. I wanted to ask about the implementation process of the different investigations and reviews that are ongoing. I'd like to hear a little bit about the transparency that will go with the recommendations that come from investigations, and how Fort Hood and ForceCom will talk about which ones are chosen to be implemented and why, and which ones are not and why.
What I will tell you is that, you know, the independent review, the additional 15-6 investigation where we've appointed one of our senior leaders in our Army, I think, you know, once those are done, you know, we'll be as transparent as we can be. I mean, we will have to provide information to Congress. We will provide information, you know, to the Army and to our bosses, and we will provide information to you all. You know, we investigate. That's part of the Army process. You know, when we have when something doesn't go as planned, we conduct an investigation, and sometimes these investigations seem bureaucratic, and you know, they seem to take more time than they should. But that's our process, and there are a number of them, you know, that are ongoing now.
And as a follow-up, I wanted to ask, if you're hearing, as you're talking to commanders and visiting Fort Hood and your own work, how have you seen the coronavirus prevention measures creating a strain on the force, and do you feel like that could be having any sort of impact on service members and their behavior on base?
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't know that I would attribute, you know, behavior on base to you know, the actions that we've taken to maintain our readiness during this unprecedented time in history. But I will tell you, it's taken a toll. You know, I am responsible to the Army for readiness. You know, the 1st Cavalry Division, 3 CR. I mean, the 3rd SFAB just returned, you know, from their very first deployment. And, you know, we don't have the luxury in at least the part of the Army that I'm in of not being ready. And so, you know, what we have found is that, you know, at the battalion level and below, there's no such thing as telework, right? There isn't. And we've had to make some tough decisions. And one of the tough decisions that we're making right now, because we are going to take care of our people. And one of the things that's challenging, it's a little bit different everywhere I go, but schools. I mean, think about what parents have done over the last, you know, 4 or 5 months. And now school has started, and so we have dual military, we have single parents, we have a number of families that are challenged, and we're trying to work our way. We're trying to work our way through that. But what I tell all of our people is we're going to take care of our people.
KWTX, Mr. Gibbs.
Good evening. My name is Alex Gibbs, and I'm with KWTX. My question is more for Major General Richardson, but you know, General Garrett, you're certainly welcome to answer this as well. Sir, you mentioned a little bit about Operation Phantom Action, and you briefly talked about it a little bit both during the ceremony and in your statement. Is there any way you can kind of go more into depth as far as what exactly is being planned, or if you guys are undergoing any further planning in that operation?
Sure. So, you know, first of all, it is in development, and as you know, day one on the job, what I've done is issued planning guidance to the staff to work the exact details. But I can tell you what it encompasses is it's an opportunity for me as the commander to set priorities, and that would be what I've just discussed earlier, which is my #1 priority is building cohesive teams. It's about investing time, as General Garrett mentioned downstairs, is that as a senior leader, you do 2 things. You set priorities, and then you provide time or resources. And so those are 2 things that what Operation Phantom Action will do is set the priorities, provide the time, and then we will invest in our soldiers, invest in our leaders, with the circling back with an accountability piece. So really what we're talking about is when we say invest in our soldiers, invest in our leaders with the time that we make available, that's about taking action and baselining them and clearly articulating what the expectation is of a leader about knowing their soldiers. And then once we do that training, then at that point we've now established a standard and then we hold people accountable for the execution.
And I'll just, so, you know, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the Secretary of the Army, and we've been at this for about 4 or 5 months. And the Chief and the Secretary, you know, the Army's overarching effort to get after providing time for our leaders to get to know their soldiers better, quite frankly. Theirs is really Project Inclusion, and this gets at everything that deals with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so what I've done as the FORCECOM commander is I have provided time. So you know, this foundational training day, although probably not a great name, but what I have done is I have directed commanders throughout Forces Command 1 day a month to provide time to their leaders, and these are squad leaders, platoon leaders, company commanders, team leaders, to have time to get to know one another, to have time to do those things that, you know, when I was Lieutenant Garrett, you know, we took for granted, you know, the time to counsel, the time to know not just the soldier but the family. Because one of the things that we found is we have been so busy and we have been moving so fast and there's so much turbulence inside of our organizations that our leaders don't necessarily know our soldiers as well as we should. And so this is one of a number of efforts that we currently have ongoing.
And just as a follow-up, and both of you are welcome to answer this as well, when it comes to Operation Phantom Action, and you're talking about establishing trust between leaders and their soldiers, have you guys taken into effect, or is there any consideration as far as the reporting of sexual harassment or sexual abuse or anything like that? Because obviously I don't want to bring up individual cases, but in many of these cases, that is a very big topic that's come up, and that it's, you know, oh, it was unreported, or oh, it wasn't speculated correctly.
Yeah, so here's what I would tell you. Sexual harassment, sexual assault, suicides, racism, extremism, those are the 3 things that inside of the Army, those are the 3 things that break trust with the American people. You know, we have pretty good processes in the Army, but our challenge is right now, although we think reporting is better today than it was yesterday, better this year than it was last year, there are still soldiers out there who don't trust their chain of command. So we are working very, very hard at building that trust. We're working very hard, you know, to as we talk to all of our soldiers. And sexual harassment and sexual assault and suicides, and even the racism and extremism. The other piece that we're finding is that you know, our soldiers don't always intervene. You know, one of the things that I ask soldiers when I go around and talk to them is, hey, what would it take for you to intervene? Would it be, you know, what does a person have to say, or what does a person have to do? Everybody's pretty clear on sexual assault. You know, sexual assault, you know, they would intervene right away. Sexual harassment is a little bit more difficult and something that we're going to have to continue to work on.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
KCEN, Mr. Roy.
Hi, my name is Barry Roy with KCN Channel 6. Recent events at Fort Hood have made international headlines, making Fort Hood a black eye for the entire U.S. military. So what are you going to do, General Johnson, to increase transparency on post and to repair the image of Fort Hood?
So, you know, what I can tell you from my personal observations coming in and looking forward is, again, going back to this idea of investing in our soldiers and our leaders. So what we do is we provide them time to get to know their soldiers, because really what it comes down to is trust. We all have relationships, and you know the people that you trust. You trust people that you have built rapport with, that you have a shared experience with, and who have invested in you. And then you trust that person. Well, that's what we're going to do in the Operation Phantom Action, is provide this time, provide the training, teach young leaders how to ask hard, difficult questions. Have those conversations that are uncomfortable. Those are the ones that then allow relationships to build, and you start to understand the other person. And once you understand and can empathize with somebody who may be different than you, you start to build trust. And from that trust becomes cohesion. And that gets back to what General Garrett was just discussing. Once you develop a level of cohesion and trust with somebody, you're going to intervene to protect them. And that's where we want to get in the future.
And I'll just, here's what I would tell you. Fort Hood and the units here at Fort Hood are great units in our Army. And what happened to Specialist Guillen was horrible. What happened to Sergeant Fernandez was tragic. But as I said before, bad things happen to great units. And we will not be defined by this. We owe Specialist Guillen, her parents, her family, we owe her our very, very best efforts to get better, and we will. We will get better. We are going to look at this as hard as we can. We're going to identify areas for our Army to get better and to make improvements, and we're going to do that.
My follow-up question would be based off of what you just said. Why did it take Vanessa Guillen's murder for these changes to be enacted? Why did we get to that point before we're here now?
We've been we have been looking at some of this longer than Specialist Guillen's death. We've been looking hard at sexual harassment and sexual assault. We've been looking at suicides, and we've been looking at racism and extremism. I mean, go back to the death of George Floyd that started all of this, or at least the racial unrest in the country. We started looking hard at the Army internally then. We've been looking at sexual harassment and sexual assault for years, and we will continue to do so. As I said before, what happened to Specialist Vanessa Guillen was absolutely horrible, and we're going to do everything we can to uncover everything that happened, identify the folks who were involved, and ensure that they're held accountable. But the other thing is, we are going to look at the Army. We are going to look at what can we do to increase reporting of sexual harassment, to reduce the incidence of sexual harassment. And that gets back at what General Richardson said. When you have cohesive teams, when you have teammates that trust one another, there generally is less harassment.
Dennis Turner with KXXV KRHD. General Richardson, I'm curious about, your plan sounds like it's right out of the very latest HR playbook. Congratulations, it sounds fantastic. I'm curious, though, about what metrics you're going to use to see that it's successful. It appears to me that if you are successful with this, you're going to get an increase in a lot of these reports at first, before it starts to settle down. So do you have any idea? I know you're still forming all this, and coming up with how you're forming it, but do you know how you're going to hold the accountability on this? What metrics will you use to hold individual steps and people accountable?
So to answer your question, that will be part of the analysis, part of the staff analysis. What they owe me is how are we going to measure this? What metrics do we use to see if we're successful? And so that will come out of the mission analysis that the staff does as we put together the program. What I will say is I'll just use an example that's taking place here on the installation right now. One of the brigade commanders is taking some initiatives to get into the barracks on the weekends and with his leaders. He's a colonel, and he's gone into the barracks with his captain commanders. And on Friday, Saturday night, checking on their soldiers, checking on their well-being. And we're already seeing a decline in incidents in that organization on the weekends. It's called command presence. And so it's a soft metric right now, but that's a early on indicator that when you have leaders that are present and they are intervening and the soldiers know that the leaders care what they're doing, well, then you see a change in behavior. So ultimately, what we have to determine are metrics that show change in behavior. And you're correct that there may be a chance, and this is a good thing, that once you build trust, because the trust that you're building with in relation to, let's say, sexual harassment or sexual assault, is you want it to be reported. And if you're a victim and you don't trust that anything's going to be done or that you could potentially get a reprisal from it, then you're not going to report. So one metric may be a temporary increase before we see a drastic decrease. And so that's what the staff will develop over the next 2 to 3 weeks as we roll this out.
So you won't be surprised if that happens?
I would not be surprised.
We've already, I mean, you know, we've been at this, we've had a focused effort on, you know, our sexual harassment, assault and response program, you know, for several years. And you know, the feedback that we've gotten here over the last few years is that we've seen an increase in reporting. And we believe that the increase in reporting is based on a higher confidence level in the people that the reports are going to, and that something's going to be done. But the fact of the matter is there's still increased reporting of sexual harassment. Here's what I'm doing. I am, and you know, this is one of those things where, you know, I'm probably being a little bit more directive than I am used to. But I am directing that one day a month, and think about this now, I'm responsible for readiness. We are responsible for the readiness of our Army. And what I'm going to tell every unit in Forces Command is one day a month, you are going to dedicate that to leaders knowing their soldiers better. Mm-hmm. One day a month. That's a huge investment. And then, you know what they're going to do? They're going to brief me back that is on training calendars, that, you know, the specific things that we're asking them to do, right. Counseling, small group discussions, you know, activities that, you know, quite frankly, over the last 10 years, we probably haven't done. You know, listen, as I think about, and it's actually interesting, you know, when I think about, you know, when I was a lieutenant, you know, we didn't have cell phones, right? I mean, if I wanted to talk to somebody, I had to go find them. You know, I remember first calls in the morning. You know, leaders were there to wake their people up in the morning. Mm-hmm. Well, today we can do that electronically. And today we don't have the physical interaction that allows, I think, for the relationships that we want. And so that's what we are looking for. And so what we're doing is, you know, I'm going to give them a day a month focused on, you know, activities that allow for that to happen.
We were hearing early on that a lot of people were complaining that had there been more command presence, there might have been fewer incidents. So that sounds like a good thing. Will that be part of the reporting to you about who's doing how much of that kind of stuff, besides the one day a month?
No,
if a commander wants to do one once a week like this other guy?
Well, I mean, you know, General Richardson and General Broadwater have already identified programs that are going to exceed, you know, what I asked for. But you know what, though? This is where we need to spend our time. I mean, you know, we have been at this, think about this now, we've been at this for 20 years. And if you look at the units, for instance, look at this place here. Look at the Great Place. For the last 6 years, the Corps headquarters, the Corps commander, the Corps primaries have been deployed 12 months, so they're gone for 12 months. They're back preparing for the next deployment. Sean McFarland, Paul Funk, you know, now Pat White. That's 3 commanders. And it's not just the commanders, right? It's not just the commanders, it's the principal staff members. And so, you know, again, one of the importance of today is new leadership, resetting, you know, Fort Hood, moving forward, right? That's what this is about.
And the accountability?
And accountability.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. KWKT, Mr. Brady.
Hi, Cameron Stewart from KWKT. Question for Richardson there, sorry. With the media scrutiny that we've been talking about and being under congressional review, kind of being under a microscope here at Fort Hood, what is the biggest challenge of that stepping into this position?
So I think the way I'd answer that is that I don't see it really as a challenge. I see it as an opportunity. Whether it's the independent review, whether it's the FORSCOM 15-6, these are opportunities for a set of outside eyes to come in and provide us feedback, provide us insights to potential blind spots that we have. I mean, you could probably argue the fact that that I'm new, Command Sergeant Major Burgoyne is new, coming from a different installation. We bring a new set of eyes. So the Army is a learning organization, and it has to be. I mean, it's a profession, and as a profession, the American people trust us to self-police. And the way we do that is we gain insights into challenges that we have to overcome. Some of those we can do from our own assessments, and sometimes we need them from outside. So I'd say we welcome assessments that provide us insights into how we can get better.
And having been here before, you mentioned that earlier, and going away for a few years, would you consider yourself a pair of outside eyes, even though you've been here before?
So, yeah, because I mean, it's been 7 years. So, I mean, a lot has changed in 7 years, including 6 years of deployments to the Middle East to combat terrorism. So all those deployments took place since I left, and we've also we've done a number of brigade-level rotations, and in the 1st Cavalry Division headquarters has deployed to Europe. So a lot of turbulence since I last left here at Fort Hood, and it's an opportunity now to reset and move forward from here.
Appreciate it, Major General.
Mr. Chavez. Yes,
Hello, Hugo Chavez with Univision. So, General Richardson, have you had any contact with the families of soldiers like Vanessa, Elder, or Gregory? If not, will you contact them?
So at this point, I have not contacted the families, and at this point, looking forward, I think what would be prudent would be allow this independent review to run its course. Additionally, the 15-6 investigation. But if the families would want to speak to me, I absolutely would make myself available. But as far as reaching out to them, I would let both the investigation and the independent review complete their course before doing that.
Thank you. And I don't know if you can answer this, but what can you tell to the parents who no longer want their children to join to the military, to the Army?
So my message to the American people would be that our diversity is our strength. And the fact that the United States Army reflects the American people is what makes us strong. Now, I'll take that to the next level, and this really goes to what we are trying to do with Operation Phantom Action, and that is taking diversity to a different level. Diversity is very important, and it's really what helps define who we are as an institution. But the next step of diversity is inclusion, because you can have a diverse organization that hasn't broken down some barriers, hasn't had those tough conversations, those uncomfortable discussions about our differences, which actually helps educate us on how those differences make us stronger. And that's when you go from just being diverse to being inclusive. And that's where we want to be when we come out at the end of this.
Thank you.
I think the other piece too is, we're going to continue to work hard to win back the trust of the American people. As I said before, sexual harassment, assault, suicides, racism, extremism, these are things that break that trust. And we're doing everything, that we can. Our Army is the greatest in the world, and it will remain the greatest in the world. And one of the reasons is because, we do take all of these things seriously, and we will look hard at ourselves, and we will fix those things that, the independent review and all of the other investigations find, and those things that we find ourselves.
Thank you.
Good evening, Thad Aberman, Killeen Daily Herald. My first question is for General Garrett. So back in February or March timeframe, Major General Efflant was tabbed to go to Fort Bliss, and Major General Richardson was originally tabbed to succeed Major General Efflant here. Now, since Major General Efflant is no longer going to Fort Bliss and is staying here, is this deemed as punishment in any way for him?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I was going to make a point at the end. I have not lost, nor has the Army lost, any confidence in Major General Scott Efflant, right? And here, Scott Efflant was supposed to take command of the 1st Armored Division early in August. And I was out there that day, and Scott Efflant wasn't there. The decision not to put Scott Efflant into command was based on allowing these investigations, and there are a number of them, to run their course. It didn't make sense for us to put Scott into command, only if something were to come out of the investigation that we would have to pull him out. So it made sense to leave him here while the investigation was going on. Here's the other thing. So General White's been gone here for 13 months. Well, if you look at Fort Bliss and the 1st Armored Division, their division commander was deployed, not for 12 months. He was deployed for 9 months. But they had a 1-star running that organization. And he's been running that organization now for almost a year. And I went to my boss and said that I was uncomfortable leaving that division without a 2-star commander for the time I thought that this investigation was going to take. And that's why, the Army is looking for somebody to go into that command as soon as possible. And so what does that mean for Scott Efflant? Well, what it means is he'll stay here, and there's plenty of good work for him to do here, and he'll do that. It means that once the investigation, so the independent review, and really the 15-6 that one of our Army senior leaders is going to conduct, will give the Army a sense of what General Efflant's future is. But that's where General Efflant stands right now. That's why he is still here, and that's why we're making a decision, or I've made the recommendation to the Army leadership that we need a commander. We need a 2-star commander there at Fort Bliss now.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up is for Major General Richardson. So there have been weekly protests or gatherings outside of Fort Hood for a few months now, and some of the things that have been being said by some people is that people are calling for Fort Hood to be shut down, and there needs to be a complete shakeup of the entire leadership in the Army. So with that rhetoric being directed at Fort Hood, what can you do, or what can you instill in your commanders to make sure that the morale of the soldiers stays on point and that they stay focused on the mission of Fort Hood and the Corps?
So I think what those protests do for me reminds me of a couple of things. First and foremost, it keeps Specialist Guillen on the forefront of my mind, and what she deserves from my leadership here at Fort Hood. And I think that's the way all the leaders who hear the protests from outside the gate, it's a constant reminder of our obligation to take care of our soldiers, which then leads me right back to the initiatives that we're going to take immediate action so that we all know our soldiers better and we can see indicators and we've built the trust that will allow them to come to us when there's a problem. That's the first thing. And then the second one is that makes me proud to be an American. I mean, that's what America's all about, is people being able to voice their dissatisfaction, and as a learning organization, as the United States Army, it's an opportunity for us to self-reflect and look to how we can be better, so that situations, tragic deaths like Specialist Kian, don't happen in vain. They have a purpose, in that they ultimately make the United States Army a better organization.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Sig Christensen, a military writer with the San Antonio Express-News and Hearst newspapers. I will direct the question to both of you if you wish to answer it. I've heard a lot today about reestablishing and rebuilding trust. That implies that the trust was broken. Is that the case? When did that happen, and how did that happen? And I'll ask a follow-up after that.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it happens individually. America trusts its Army. Fort Hood is a great place because this is where America's armored headquarters is. This is where the 1st Cavalry Division is. These are units that, if we have to fight a war, these are the units that are going to win it. We break trust individually. We broke trust with Specialist Guillen's family. We broke trust with other families, and I think that's how we have to approach it. The Army, again, sexual harassment and assault, suicides, racism and extremism, these are things that when they happen inside of their Army, they break trust with the American people, and we're doing everything that we can to be better at all of them. And one of the things that we're doing is, we really do think that engaged leadership, cohesive teams, soldiers that are fit and disciplined, that's the foundation of the Army that we want. Leaders that know one another, leaders that invest in their soldiers, and soldiers that invest in their leaders. I think that's what allows us, to rebuild that trust, one relationship at a time.
So I would echo what General Garrett said, and that is, holistically, trust is strong in the Army, but we have individual instances where that trust is broken, and one break in that link is one too many. And so, again, going back to this idea that we're always seeking opportunities to get better, we want to ensure that we, at every opportunity, strengthen our bonds of trust and be aware when they're eroding. And I think this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what's happened, and then how we can build on the trust that we have with the American people.
And then the other thing I thought about a lot here, because I've covered this post for a long time, the cases that I've seen so far, you've had 9 soldiers, if I tally this right, who have died this year. You've had 7 suicides, something along that nature. In the past, you've had as many as 22 suicides on this post. This is not a new problem. Fort Hood, in fact, seems to be well ahead of any other post in the total number of suicides over the years. I guess my question is, given all of the stuff that has happened this year on this post, is it really any different here than it is on any other post that you know about? And I'm speaking specifically about big posts with first to fight divisions.
No, I think it's a good question, and to answer your question, no, we are challenged across the Army. We are challenged across the Army, with the 3 things that I talked about that, break trust with the American people. The independent review, will look at the crime data and statistics, not just the post, but the surrounding communities. and they'll be able to pass judgment on is Fort Hood statistically any different than any of our other large posts? That will come out. But to your point is these are not challenges that are unique to Fort Hood. These are challenges that we are addressing throughout the Army, and certainly through the part of the Army that I'm responsible for.
Well, what I could say is, as we get the findings and the recommendations from the independent review, my first action will be begin an implementation process here, and my second, very close second, will be sharing it with my peers, because, as General Garrett said, this is not an anomaly at Fort Hood, and there's opportunities across the Army to implement things that we learn about our current culture from this independent review and from the 15-6 investigation that will allow us to share those lessons, those findings or recommendations to all of the commanders, to large posts, small posts, camps and stations across the Army, so that as an Army we become stronger.
Hi, how are you guys? Welcome to Fort Hood. I'm Brandy Cruz with the Fort Hood Sentinel, and I was wondering, this is a question for both of you. I was wondering if you can tell me what the change in leadership means for your average soldiers.
It means that we are moving forward. I told you, this is about resetting Fort Hood. This is about resetting the great place. This is about acknowledging that what happened was incredibly horrible, but it doesn't define Fort Hood, it doesn't define the great place, and it doesn't define the soldiers here. This is an opportunity for us at Fort Hood and throughout our Army to be better, and that's what we're going to do.
So I think circling back to I think it was our first question is the idea of a new set of eyes and an opportunity for Command Sergeant Major Burgoyne and I to step in and make an assessment and then get out onto the ground, role model command emphasis, because I absolutely believe it starts with Command Sergeant Major and I, out on the ground, talking to soldiers, listening to soldiers, and that in itself will, I believe, breed a new sense of, hey, this is where leaders belong. They belong not in an office, not behind a computer. They belong out talking to their soldiers, getting this conversation started. And I'd link it back to one of General Garrett's earlier comments about our generation of leaders. We have a new generation of leaders. Even our battalion commanders came into the United States Army since 9/11, and we've been pretty busy since then. And so some of them may not really, when General Garrett and I say engage leadership, well, what does that mean to our junior leaders? And it's our responsibility as the senior leaders to show them what we mean by engaged leadership. And my experience in the United States Army, when you show a non-commissioned officer what the expectation is, they will rise to the occasion. They will make it happen. We owe it to them as the senior leaders to show them what right looks like and what our expectation is. And that's really where I think what, as the new commander here, I can provide to the command.
Thank you, sir. That ties in with my follow-up question. I was wondering if you were going to be making rounds to the units so that soldiers can put a face to a name.
I'm glad you asked. So absolutely, that's so the first thing the Sergeant Major Burgoyne and I are going to do is in the next few days is meet with all the brigade commanders and command sergeants majors. Those are the colonel level commanders. They are critical in this. The chain of command is critical. This isn't going to be solved by one leader or a command team at the Corps. This is going to be solved by the chain of command. So first thing I'm going to do is meet with all the brigade commanders and command sergeants major. And I'm going to talk to them and get their ideas, because they have been around the block a few times, and they have a lot to provide as far as insights and lessons learned and best practices, because we do a lot of great things here at Fort Hood and the United States Army. And then with that team, we're going to go from unit to unit as part of Operation Phantom Action. One of the first phases is that the Sergeant Major and I are going to meet with all the platoon level and above leadership in the battalions and lay out expectations of what we mean by engaged leadership and building cohesive teams. And at that time, we're going to also tell them we're going to provide you the time, because that will be their number one comment back to me is, sir, you're just putting another thing on my plate. So I owe it to them. What am I going to take off? What priority? As I prioritize the command, what's going to come off the plate so that I can allow them to make this a priority? And so the answer is yes. We're going to meet with every battalion level organization, from the platoon sergeant up to the battalion commander, with the expectation that they will then turn around and do the same with their junior leaders. And again, that in itself is role modeling. I'm going to role model for them what I expect them to do and create a chain reaction here, which really will be the reset.
Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you for the excellent questions again. If I have good
Are you going to be here when I get back? I really feel like my relationship with Jess has been on the decline since Brazil. We have our good days, but we also have our bad days.
That cult is not, like, innocent at all.
Hell no. How does he expect this to be okay?
I'm really trying to make sure Jess is in a good mood. She likes cats, so we're going to meet up at a cat cafe.
Is it a cafe or a cafe? What is this, cat's place?
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. It's a place where you can just